How's it going, everyone? I hope you enjoyed the great slate of football games we had this past weekend. Let's give it up to America's real team, the Green Bay Packers. They played their hearts out. My mind told me that the 49ers would win, but my heart, man, it was so happy to watch that game. The Packers did do what I was afraid of watching it, that they would tighten up, and they did end up losing that game. Yes, they lost it. But Title Town will be back next year, and the 49ers are not looking that great to be in the Super Bowl or even beating the Lions. So let's go Packers. Next, we got Duke talking about college basketball again. I think their run might be over at being one of the top teams. They'll have the money to buy some players with NIL, but I think their coach just isn't as great as Krzyzewski was, and I could see them definitely falling to the side. I think Tennessee after the early 2000s and Manning, when they kind of fell back, they're starting to come back a little bit, but I can definitely see that fall for Duke, and I hope they don't just hang on to their coach for too long just because he is handpicked by Krzyzewski. Next up, the 2026 World Cup. We found out the final is going to be in Dallas. I actually think that's amazing for USA Soccer. Here, anywhere that is close to Mexico, the fans, they show up, but I think the biggest thing in 2026 is going to help solidify the US finishing in the top four and just bring in so many more players that will help us finally get our first World Cup, if not in 2026, within the decade after that. And finally, the Yankees. You guys have already let the top free agent relievers go off. I've said this again, I miss George Steinbrenner. Boss would have bought up everything he thought the team needed. We traded for Soto, and as I said, the job's not done, and it is not done. Gordon Montgomery's out there. He showed he could pitch in Yankee Stadium. Go get him. Go get Blake Snell. He has that high upside arm in case Rodon really is a pumpkin after his couple of years in San Francisco. I also still think we need a impact bat that's a high batting average guy. Those are some moves that we just have to make, and I just don't see it. I think Hal likes keeping the purse strings, and he's happy with them just kind of competing for being around the playoffs and not World Series, which is the standard for the Yankees.
You guys want hot takes? I got the hot takes. Novak Djokovic is going to win a calendar Grand Slam this year, starting this weekend, where he will win his Australian Open Championship for the 11th time in his career. This is the first of 4 major championships in this calendar year, and he will follow up this performance with wins at the French Open in May, Wimbledon in July, and wrap up with the US Open in August. The calendar Grand Slam will bring his slam total to a whopping 28 titles, becoming the first player since German legend Steffi Graf when she completed the calendar Grand Slam in 1998. I'm going to take it one step further, say he beats Carlos Alcaraz in 3 out of those 4 finals. Mark it.
These are my hot takes for the week. The Chicago Bears should draft Caleb Williams. There's a lot of speculation surrounding what Chicago should do with the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, but it really shouldn't be a hard decision. Caleb Williams is a generational talent at QB. I can't remember a player more hyped up coming into the draft since Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck. So if you're the Chicago front office in this situation, you really don't have much of a choice, because imagine if you don't take him, he becomes a superstar somewhere else, and you remain a mediocre team. The whole front office is getting canned. I think they should go with the safe option here. Take Williams, develop him, and maybe they'll finally get a 4,000-yard passer in Chicago. Moving on, Jaden Daniels should be the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. Drake May is another great QB prospect. He runs well, he throws well. He reminds me a little bit of Justin Herbert or Josh Allen, but I still think if I'm Washington, I'm taking Jaden Daniels at the number 2 pick. Daniels has pinpoint accuracy on the deep ball and processes the game at a very high level. And he also has that special ability to create with his legs, and I think that makes him the number 2 prospect in the draft. And finally, the Buffalo Bills Super Bowl window is closing fast, and it may have actually just shut completely. Josh Allen is still a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, but the Bills don't have the best cap situation moving forward, and Stephon Diggs disappeared down the stretch for the Bills. Who knows if he's going to be back next season or not. It's going to be hard for them to keep a team around Josh Allen that can compete for Super Bowls, and the Dolphins and the Jets are fast on the Bills' heel, in the division next season.
My hot take of the week is, unless you are a Chiefs, Ravens, 49ers, or Lions fan, just enjoy the rest of the playoffs. There's only 3 games left in the NFL season, and I've been doing fantasy for 8 or 9 months now, and it's nice to just watch the games and not have to root for anything. So I can understand if you're a fan of one of those teams still left, then root your heart out. But other than that, just enjoy the game and for what it is, and it was a fun season, and let's get a little break in here before we start it up next year. But it is dynasty season 24/7. Let's not forget that as well.
Here's the players I'm looking at next year in mid to late rounds. Brock Purdy is an obvious choice to me. There's still so many skeptics out there on him, which makes me think he'll be drafted somewhere between the 6th and 10th rounds. Still early to tell, which will still be higher than it was this past season. But I mean, hey, with the weapons he's got in Debo, CMC, Ayuk, Kittle, he should have another top 10 fantasy QB year, and that's definitely a starter for any format out there. Rashad Bateman is more of a sleeper, I'd say, but he's someone I'm looking to advance next year, even with the emergence of Zay Flowers within that Baltimore offense. Bateman is still young and someone who should be able to carve out more targets with such an explosive QB. Plus, with Flowers on the team and Andrews returning from injury, Bateman should have some favorable matchups next year. And last but not least, I'm looking at Mike Evans. It seems every year he has more and more doubters because he's another year older. But listen to this. 5 straight seasons with 1,000 reception yards or more. 5 of those seasons he started every game, and 4 of those seasons he only missed 1 game. So you're talking about someone who in 9 of the 10 seasons has been almost automatic week in, week out. The durability, the consistency, what is there not to like?
All right, we're going to quickly discuss a few players for the 2024 fantasy football that we believe will go in rounds 5 or later. First up, Jaden Reed. I believe he's going to be a great do-it-all Packer in his prime. Think Randall Cobb. He should give you a floor of at least 1,000 all-purpose yards, and if his receiving becomes much more consistent, sky's the limit. Next, Brian Robinson, Washington Commanders. He was fantastic. He showed you could run the ball, catch the ball, be that all-purpose back. If he stays healthy, I expect him to give you over 1,300 all-purpose yards, and that's great value for someone that's probably going to go in the 5th to 7th round. And finally, Kyler Murray. Whenever he came back from injury, he showed that he doesn't just run the ball. He can pass, and he played a little bit better than he had in previous years. And he gave you close to 19 points per game, and that should just be the floor. I'm expecting him to have a breakout year and probably give you a top 8 finish next season.
These are some players that I think present great value going into next fantasy football season. The first guy I have is Nico Collins, who's going off as around the wide receiver 20 for next season. But this guy's already a bona fide superstar. He had 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns this season, and that was with CJ Stroud only in his rookie season. This team's only going to get better and better, and I think Collins will be a top 10 or even top 5 wide receiver next season. Next, I have Trey McBride. He's going off as the tight end 5 roughly going into next season, but I think this guy has tight end 1 upside. He was a target machine, and he played really well with Kyler Murray. The Cardinals are a worst to first type of team next year. I think that they could take a big step in the right direction, and that Trey McBride could be a superstar. Next, I have Aaron Jones. He's going off as the running back 20 for next season. And I know he had a tough regular season, so a lot of people want to write him off, but he had a great playoffs. He looked electric running the ball, so I still think he has running back 10 upside going forward. And finally, I have Kyle Pitts. Right now, he's going off as the tight end 15, but he still has tight end 1 upside going forward, especially if they pair him with Bill Belichick and a good quarterback. This team could be absolutely phenomenal in Atlanta, and I think Kyle Pitts could finally scratch the ceiling of what he could do. He can finally reach his full potential, and he's definitely a very good sleeper for next season.
All right, players I will be targeting after round 5 in 2024 redraft leagues. At quarterback, I will be targeting Jordan Love. I think he'll be a top 10 quarterback and he'll get drafted as one. And probably after the top 4 or 5 go, he will be in consideration. But I think you can maybe get him after round 6 or later. At the running back position, I'm not sure who I'm going to be targeting yet. There's going to be way too much movement to know where these guys are all going to land. So I'm just going to wait and see at running back. At wide receiver, I'll be looking to target Tank Dell on the Houston Texans. He is coming back from a season-ending injury, fractured fibula, which is a leg bone, and as long as he's healthy and practicing and doing training camp, I will be targeting him somewhere between round 6 and round 8. And at the tight end position, I think Dalton Kincaid showed enough in his rookie year. He had 73 catches in the regular season and started to be a real target hog down the stretch. Only 2 touchdowns, so he could go way up in the touchdown department, especially with Josh Allen throwing the ball. I'll be looking to target him more towards round 10, probably in the tight end 8 to 12 range if I'm waiting on tight end. And those are the guys I'll be looking to really go for in the middle rounds after I've secured a few running backs and wide receivers.
We are playing 1-2 at WinStar. It limps to me. I'm in the low jack and I have 10-8 of diamonds. I love suited gap connectors, so I raise to 11. The button, the big blind, and middle position call. The flop comes queen of hearts, 10 of spades, 4 of hearts. The middle position now makes it $15. And a lot of times at these stakes, a bet like that usually is a draw. So I call with middle position and the button and big blind fold. The turn now is a 5 of clubs, middle position out checks, and that helps kind of confirm my thought that he had a draw. So I check behind, and then the river comes the 2 of clubs. Middle position now bets $50. I really didn't think he made a straight, so I snap call and show him my 10s, and he mucks. Later he tells me that he had ace 2 of hearts, so he did have some showdown river on the value on the river when he makes a pair, but overall everything just kind of told me he had a draw, which leads me kind of to my point, which is at lower limits, whenever they have these kind of low bets on the flop, think 8 to 15, a lot of times I have learned that it's just them on a draw and they want to name their price. And that's kind of something I learned from Brad Owens in some of his earlier videos. And so calling with middle position, and then whenever they check the turn, it just kind of gives you the green light that that is what they have. As long as everything brooks out, which all the obvious stuff brooked out from the flop, then, you know, it gives you a great, you know, spot to call. And, you know, he did have a little bit more than I thought because he did turn the wheel draw, but, you know, ultimately he just kind of blasted off, and that's become, you know, a little bit trendy, everyone polarizing. And I will say a lot of times when people do that, especially at 1-3 or lower, they have it. There's no need to call a polarizing bet. If there's $30 in the pot, that means you put $10-15 in there and they bet 100 on the river. I mean, let your $15 go. I mean, making a hero call feels good, but most of the time at lower limits, you're going to be wrong because people just don't make those crazy bluffs. Maybe if they're just drunk and crazy, but overall, I would say polarizing bets at lower limits, usually they got the goods.
This is a poker hand I played at Shuffle 512 in Austin, Texas. Effective stacks were around $350. In this hand, the cutoff raised to $15 and the button called. I woke up with black aces in the small blind and raised to $60, and only the button makes the call. The flop comes queen 4-9 with 1 heart, and I bet 1/3 size here, $40, and he makes the call. He can call with almost all of his range here, and I was almost hoping that he would take the bait and go for the bluff. The turn comes the ace of hearts, which brings in the hard draw, but also gives me top set. And at this point, I go for the trap because I think a lot of his range is going to want to fold out here when I bet. His top pairs will be downgraded to second pair, and his middle pairs will be downgraded even more. And maybe he'll take the bait and bluff here and think he can get me off of kings and king queen, that kind of stuff. He does go all in when I check, and I make the snap call. And he has 5-3 of hearts for a combo draw, and he does bink the heart draw on the river and win the pot, but there's nothing we can do but tap the table and say nice hand.
You want that plastic working come Miller time?
You know, I can foresee a lot of possible outcomes to this thing, and not a single one of them involves Miller time.
PMA. Positive mental attitude.
Welcome to Miller Time. I'm Kevin Miller, and today I'm going to be discussing cash games in poker and how much you should buy in for. The first consideration I would have is bankroll management. If you're a recreational player, you don't need to worry about bankroll management. You just need to play with only money that you can afford to lose. It's not going to affect you at all. If you're a professional, I think you need 100 buy-ins at whatever buy-in you're consistently buying in at. You need 100 times that behind set aside for just poker to handle the variance and the swings. If you only have 20 or 40 or 50 buy-ins, I think you can go broke and lose your bankroll, no matter how good of a player you think you are. Now, just because you have 100 buy-ins, let's say at a 2-5 game, doesn't mean you have to buy in for 500. You could buy in for the minimum, maybe 200 or so, or 250, and feel out the table. If it's a bad table, it's better to be short stack versus deep stack. And if there are a lot of bad players with a lot of big stacks, you can always add on more up to the table maximum, but you can never take chips off the table. So that's one thing to consider and utilize. You don't always have to worry about looking like the big stack. You're there to make money, and whatever your stack is, your opponent's stack is in any given hand. And then another thing to consider is what type of playing style are you most comfortable playing? Hopefully the answer is tight aggressive, or in some games loose aggressive, but the truth is most players are tight passive and then also loose passive. Now, if you're more comfortable playing one of those styles, I would steer towards that style, but over time I'd try to slowly adjust to tight aggressive. But any given day, your probably best odds are probably staying with a style that you're most comfortable with, whether it's tight passive or whatnot. Just learn a couple of different things that you're not currently able to do and put those into your game, and you will get better over time. Those are my tips on cash game and how much to buy in for. If you guys have any questions, leave a comment. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time.
I didn't think I'd ever need to tell you this, but I would be a bad parent if I didn't. Soccer was invented by European ladies to keep them busy while their husbands did the cooking.
Why do you have to hate what you don't understand?
I don't hate you, Bobby.
I meant soccer.
Oh, yeah, I hate soccer, yes.
I'm Jordan Tennis, and this is the Degenerate Gambling Life's Added Minutes. Leipzig played host to Bundesliga leaders Bayer Leverkusen over the weekend, who were unbeaten in 26 matches in all competitions this season, by the way. And what a fantastic game it was. Red Bull went up 1-0 early in the first half, in what would be a fairly pedestrian performance from the visitors in that first half. Now, entering the second half was a different story. Leverkusen got on the board early, immediately, 2 minutes in the 47th minute, when an unmarked Nathan Tala went strolling in for goal. Leverkusen clearly had taken all momentum at that point and were knocking on the door. Then, the shot goal against the run of play. Leipzig grabbed the lead again, through their leading goal scorer on the season, Luis Openda, in the 56th minute. The lead did not last as long as the first lead did. Just 7 minutes later, Jonathan Tah took matters into his own hands off a corner, scoring a towering header. With the game all square, the winning goal was not produced until stoppage time. Leverkusen snatched the winner, completing an insane comeback and extending their unbeaten streak to 27 games in all comps and maintaining a tight grip on the top spot in the Bundesliga. Spain's La Liga has had quite the surprise in the title race this year. Girona has been having an unbelievable season so far, and yet again they respond to the pressures of leading the league with a resounding 5-1 win over Sevilla, who have been struggling this year. After Sevilla scored the opening goal in the 10th minute, it was all Girona from there. Artem Dovbyk scored a first-half hat-trick when he hammered in 3 goals in just 6 minutes, scoring in the 13th, 15th, and 19th minute. Girona will close out the game when they would add 2 more goals in the second half to complete the rout. Girona and Leverkusen both handling business in their respective leagues. On to some Copa del Rey action, where we had the Madrid Derby in the round of 16. Real Madrid would visit crosstown rivals Atletico Madrid, and Real would find themselves 1 goal down thanks to the opening goal by Samuel Lino in the 39th minute after a missed kick from Antonio Rudiger. Jan Oblak would be the next to contribute a blunder, causing the team a goal just before halftime. More baffling play leading to goals when Real Madrid's Eduardo Camavinga essentially passed the ball to Alvaro Morata, who put Atletico in the lead once again. Later, in the 82nd, Atleti would blow a huge chance, and off the counterattack, Real would punish them. They leveled the game thanks to a spot-on cross from Jude Bellingham, which Joselu would head in to draw level. We would see extra time in this affair, and it was all Atletico, scoring from a great steal and run with the ball from Antoine Griezmann to bury the winner in the 100th minute before Rodrigo Riquelme added a fourth in the 119th minute to send Real Madrid crashing out of the tournament. We hope you guys have a good week, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, fantasy basketball. The first player I have is Trey Jones, San Antonio Spurs. He is a point guard. He's been player 51 the last month. He's available in 30% of leagues. I'm actually kind of shocked it was that high. And if he is available in one of your leagues, please snap him up. He's actually been better than player 25 the last 2 weeks. So he's giving you 13 points, 1 3-pointer made, 4 rebounds, 10 assists. That's where it's at, the 10 assists and 2.5 steals. So he is definitely someone that can help you. Next, I apologize now. The name, Oyo Donasumo, Chicago Bulls. Again, I'm sorry. He is a shooting guard. The reason why I bring him up, this is what we talked about. He is a player that will have value if and when they trade Zach LaVine. He's available in 83% of leagues, and he's giving you some really good numbers. The last 2 weeks, he's been player 96. He gives you 14 points, 2 3-pointers, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, half a steal, and a block. So, he's already giving you pretty good value, and if they trade Zach LaVine, it will only get higher. So this is someone that could give you top 50 value, so look to scoop him up. Now, if you haven't yet, look at our merchandise. Please think about buying some of it. Let us know in the comments. Also, please like, comment, subscribe. Now let's get into it. We have the Super Bowl. It is less than 3 weeks away. The team will be in Vegas. We have 2 meetup games. First up, we have February 8th at Mandalay Bay Casino. We will be there at 6 p.m. and we look forward to playing with you guys and having a good time. Then February 9th at 1 p.m. for those that can't get there at Thursday, we'll be at Caesars. Again, come meet up with us, say hi, and we'll talk the big game. We'll talk any fantasy that you guys want. We'll be playing poker games all weekend. We'll let you guys know on Instagram all the different places that we are at. And if you haven't, please, again, like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys next week.